I stand in front of the mirror, my wedding dress hugging my frame perfectly, the soft lace tracing delicate patterns against my skin. My mother fusses over the veil, her hands smoothing out imaginary creases, while my bridesmaids giggle behind me, excitedly chatting about the ceremony. I should be excited too. After all, this is the day every girl dreams of, a beautiful wedding, a man who loves me beyond measure, and a future filled with nothing but happiness. And yet, beneath the layers of silk and lace, a secret clings to me like a stain that refuses to fade. I turn to look at my fiancé, standing across the room, talking to his best man. He catches my gaze and smiles, his warm brown eyes filled with nothing but love. My heart clenches. He is everything I could have ever wanted. Loyal, kind, patient. A man who has never once made me question his love for me. I love him too, more than I ever thought possible. But love doesn't erase the past. And my past is something he will never know. The weight of my secret is suffocating. Exactly 1 month ago, I made a mistake. A mistake that should have never happened. A mistake I told myself I would never repeat. And yet I had done it anyway. I press my hands against the vanity, taking slow breaths. The past is in the past, I remind myself. It doesn't define me. What matters is the life I am about to begin with the man waiting for me at the altar. I can be the woman he believes I am. I have to be. Still, my mind drifts back, no matter how much I try to resist it. Back to a time when I lived differently. When I wasn't tied down, when I was reckless, when I let my desires control me. Back to when it all began. The memory takes shape before I can stop it. The scent of old wooden floors, the low hum of a TV playing in the background, the feeling of a body pressed close to mine. I close my eyes, and I am there again. In that small apartment. In that fleeting moment where everything changed. And just like that, the past pulls me under. 2 years ago, I found myself between places, caught in the limbo of moving out of my old apartment while waiting for my new lease to start. It was supposed to be a short inconvenience, a few months at most. Thankfully, a close friend of mine offered me a place to stay, and with no better option, I accepted. What I didn't expect was that I wouldn't be the only one crashing there. Nathan. The moment I found out he'd be staying there too, something inside me stirred. We had always had an unspoken chemistry, a connection that lingered just beneath the surface. There had been fleeting moments in the past, a lingering touch, an exchange of looks that lasted too long. But we had never acted on it. He was attractive in a way that made him effortlessly charming, with a laid-back confidence that made people gravitate toward him. And now, for the next 2 months, we would be living under the same roof. At first, it was innocent. We coexisted as friends, respecting each other's space. He took the small guest room, while I had a sectioned-off area in the living room. But the apartment was small, and there was no avoiding each other. We cooked together, stayed up late talking, shared inside jokes. It was easy, comfortable, familiar. But beneath the surface, something else was brewing. There were the accidental touches, his hand brushing against mine as we passed each other in the kitchen, his knee pressing against mine when we sat on the couch. Then there were the lingering looks, the way he would glance at me when he thought I wasn't noticing. I told myself it was nothing, that I was imagining it. But deep down, I knew better. Then one night, everything changed. Our mutual friend was out for the evening, leaving just the two of us in the apartment. We decided to watch a movie, something mindless and familiar. I sat on one end of the couch, Nathan on the other. But as the movie went on, the space between us disappeared. I don't remember exactly when he put his arm around me, but I didn't stop him. I didn't want to. I melted into him, my body instinctively drawn to his warmth. When he tilted my chin up to look at him, I knew what was coming. The first kiss was slow, hesitant, like we were both testing the waters. Then it deepened. It was inevitable. That night, we crossed the line we had danced around for years. And once that line was crossed, there was no going back. What was supposed to be a one-time lapse in judgment became something else entirely. For the next 2 months, we gave in to temptation again and again. It became routine, stolen kisses in the kitchen, whispered words in the dark, tangled sheets, and breathless laughter. I told myself it was just fun. No strings, no complications. Just 2 people enjoying each other before life pulled us in different directions. But even then, a small voice in the back of my mind whispered, that it wasn't that simple. That it never had been. Time moved forward, as it always does. Eventually, the lease for my new apartment was ready, and I packed my things, leaving behind the cramped space that had briefly become my home, and everything that had happened within its walls. Nathan and I didn't have a dramatic goodbye. There was no conversation about what we had been, no promises of staying in touch, no expectations. It simply ended, as naturally as it had begun. I told myself it was for the best, that it had always been temporary, something fueled by convenience and proximity rather than anything real. And then I met him, my fiancé. He was everything Nathan wasn't: grounded, dependable, the kind of man who made me feel safe in a way I hadn't even realized I craved. Where Nathan was reckless and unpredictable, my fiancé was steady and thoughtful. He wasn't just a fleeting passion. He was the kind of person you built a life with. I fell in love with him quickly. It wasn't the kind of all-consuming fire that burned fast and bright like it had with Nathan. Instead, it was a slow warmth that grew over time, filling every empty space inside me. With him, love wasn't just a feeling. It was a choice, something we nurtured every day. The past became just that, the past. Nathan became a distant memory. A chapter one had closed without regret. I convinced myself that what we had wasn't worth dwelling on, that it had meant nothing. And for years it worked. I built a new life. A good one. A stable one. I stopped wondering what might have been, stopped thinking about the late-night whispers and stolen moments. I was happy, and more importantly, I was content. Until he came back. It was sudden, unexpected. A simple notification on my phone. A message from a number I had deleted long ago, but never quite forgot. Hey, long time. My fingers hovered over the screen, a strange flutter stirring in my stomach. I should have ignored it. I should have deleted the message and moved on, just as I had for years. But I didn't. Instead, I replied. And with that single response, the past that I had buried so carefully began to resurface. It started with a simple message. Hey, long time. I stared at the screen, my heart skipping a beat as I read the name at the top of the message. Nathan. A name I hadn't spoken aloud in years. A name I had convinced myself I had left behind. For a moment, I considered ignoring it, deleting it, pretending I had never seen it. But instead, almost instinctively, my fingers moved across the screen. Hey, wow, it really has been a long time. A harmless response. Or at least, that's what I told myself. At first, our conversation was casual, polite, a brief exchange about life, work, where we had both ended up. I mentioned my upcoming wedding, expecting that to be the natural end of our interaction. But Nathan wasn't the type to let things go so easily. Married, huh? Never thought I'd see the day. Does he know about us? I swallowed hard, my fingers tightening around my phone. His words made something stir inside me, something I didn't want to acknowledge. I laughed it off, replying with a light-hearted, "Of course not. That was a lifetime ago." But then he brought up the past, the memories. He reminded me of nights we had spent tangled together, of whispered secrets and stolen moments. He told me he still remembered the way I used to look at him when I thought no one was watching. And before I even realized what was happening, I found myself reminiscing too. More than I should have. "We should catch up in person," he said eventually. I hesitated. Every part of me knew that this was a bad idea. I was getting married in a month. I had a man who loved me, who would do anything for me. There was no reason, no excuse, to see Nathan again. And yet, okay, that one word sealed my fate. We met at a quiet bar downtown. Somewhere low-key, somewhere we wouldn't run into anyone we knew. I told myself it was just drinks, just conversation. But the moment I saw him, the moment his familiar smirk crossed his face as he leaned against the bar waiting for me, I felt the old pull. I had spent years convincing myself that what we had meant nothing, that it was a temporary indulgence, a passing phase. But sitting across from him, hearing his voice, feeling the way his eyes lingered on mine, I knew I had been lying to myself. One drink turned into two. Two turned into four. I should have left after the first one. Should have walked away before the alcohol softened my resolve. But I didn't. When Nathan leaned in, his voice low and teasing, when his fingers brushed against mine on the table, I knew where this was heading. And I let it happen. "Come back to my place," he said. I should have said no. Instead, I followed him out the door. I told myself it was harmless, that nothing would happen, that I was just being reckless for one night, indulging in nostalgia before walking away forever. But the moment we were alone in his apartment, the moment the door shut behind us, everything from the past came rushing back. I didn't stop him when he stepped closer, his hands finding my waist. I didn't pull away when his lips brushed against mine. I let it happen. And the worst part, I wanted it. For hours, I forgot about my fiancé, my wedding, the life I was supposed to be building. I let myself fall back into something familiar, something intoxicating. It was only in the cold light of morning that reality hit. I woke up tangled in sheets that weren't mine, in arms that didn't belong to the man I was supposed to marry. Regret settled in, sharp and suffocating. I dressed quickly, barely sparing Nathan a glance as I murmured an excuse about needing to go. He didn't try to stop me. As I stepped out into the morning air, I took a deep breath, steadying myself. I made a mistake. A terrible, unforgivable mistake. But no one had to know. I would bury it deep, lock it away, and move forward as if it had never happened. Because in a month I was getting married, and I refused to let one night destroy the future I had built. The church is breathtaking. White roses line the aisle, soft music hums through the air, and every seat is filled with people who have gathered to witness this moment, our moment. I stand at the entrance, my fingers clutching the bouquet, my heart hammering in my chest. Everyone sees a blushing bride, radiant and glowing, walking toward the love of her life. They see a woman stepping into the happiest day of her existence. But they don't know. They don't know that 1 month ago, I woke up in another man's bed. They don't know that beneath the lace of my wedding dress, my skin still carries the weight of a mistake I'll never be able to erase. And they will never know. As I take each step toward the altar, my eyes lock on him. The man who loves me more than anything in this world. The man who would do anything for me. My fiancé. My husband-to-be. He looks at me as if I'm everything. As if I'm perfect. I feel my stomach tighten because I know I'm not. He doesn't know that I almost ruined this. That I let my past creep back in and drag me under. That I betrayed the man who sees me as his future. He doesn't know, and I will never let him know. The ceremony begins, and the officiant's voice feels distant, drowned out by the thoughts swirling in my head. My fiancé holds my hands gently, his thumb brushing over my skin in a comforting motion. He has no idea that just weeks ago, these same hands were gripping another man's sheets, reaching for something they should have never touched. I swallow hard, forcing a smile as he speaks his vows. They are everything I knew they would be, devoted, kind, full of promises of forever. And then it's my turn. I open my mouth, but for a moment, nothing comes out. Because for the first time, I wonder, would he still love me if he knew the truth? If he knew that I slipped, that I let myself be pulled back into something I should have never revisited? Would he still look at me this way? Would he still promise me forever? I push the thought away. What happened does not exist in this world. It is locked away in a place where it will never see the light of day. It never happened. I take a deep breath and force my voice to steady. I vow to love you, to cherish you, and to stand by your side for the rest of my life. The words feel heavier than they should. But I say them anyway, because today I am choosing this man. I am choosing the life we have built. I am choosing to move forward. When the ceremony ends and he kisses me for the first time as his wife, the crowd erupts in applause. There are tears, laughter, joy. Everything a wedding should be. I smile and hold his hand tight. No one will ever know what I did. This secret will stay buried, locked away in the past where it belongs. Because I refuse to lose this. And as I step forward into the rest of my life, I do so with one final promise to myself. Never again. This is Evelyn, and this story was sent to me by a subscriber who wished to remain anonymous. Some secrets are never meant to be told, and some mistakes will forever stay buried.